People said, you're crazy. You're buying at the all-time high. Well, okay, let me just say for the record, guys, I'm going to be buying at the all-time high forever. Like, if the company's in business 30 years, then every year for the next 30 years, there's going to be a point at which I'll be buying at an all-time high, The haters are they're like, blah, 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 you bought some at 57 or 49 or whatever. They always conveniently forget that I also bought 175 million worth of it below 10,000. Like, they leave that part out.
What's up and welcome back. Tonight we're talking Bitcoin and there seems to be a trend, not a fad. To clarify, go ahead and take a look. See, fads go to zero and real trends like the wheel or fire, the internet, Bitcoin, well, they seem to go parabolic and to infinity, and there is a growing trend with some of the greatest minds in the investing world, and that is growing advocacy, adoption, and hodling of Bitcoin. There truly is no second best. We get a lot to cover. Let's get it.
Maybe a frame, but people will pay millions or tens of millions of dollars for it. And so it comes down at the very basic level for supply and demand. So Bitcoin is the only economic entity where the supply is unaffected by the demand. So even with gold, if gold, which is $1,800 today, if gold goes to $18,000, there will be a lot more gold mined because mines that are unprofitable will become profitable. And so gold, which accretes today, the production of gold is equal to about 1.5% to 2% of the total value per year. And that's the same accretion that Bitcoin has currently. But this year, 2022, I think will drop below 1.5% on that. So only 21 million Bitcoin can ever be created or close to it. It doesn't matter if Bitcoin is 100,000 or 20 million, there's only going to be that many of them. So all you have to really believe is that the demand for Bitcoin will grow faster than 1.5%, over the next number of years, and the price inexorably will go up. So I've only recently been allowing myself to be described as a Bitcoin bull. I used to tell people, they say, oh, you're a Bitcoin bull, you own a lot of Bitcoin. I'm like, I do own a lot of it, but I'm actually a Bitcoin observer, and I'm observing its trajectory as a new technology and comparing it to the trajectories of things like the printing press, or the steam engine, or the railroads, or the automobile, or electricity, and it's following that very not predictable, because it's not predictable certainly in the early days, a well understood path for the adoption of new technologies. And I think it was Stan Druckenmiller said earlier in the year that, and now he owns Bitcoin, by the way.
Pretty awesome to have Bill Miller, the mutual fund legend, talk about Bitcoin supply and demand. And hey, if there's anything we've learned, it's not to argue with the man who's, well, beaten the S&P 500 15 consecutive years. But guys, Bill Miller's not alone. Remember we said the world's greatest investors, plural, hodl Bitcoin. Let's go ahead and check out Stanley Druckenmiller's view on Bitcoin.
Specifically, growth stocks. With regard to gold and Bitcoin, you've kind of overstated in your introduction my enthusiasm for Bitcoin. I do own a tiny bit of it, but I own a lot more gold. Gold is a 5,000-year brand as a go-to asset in terms of inflation. And as I just described, I could see why you could have inflation way beyond the market's expectations. Having said that, I'm a bit of a dinosaur, but I have warmed up to the fact that Bitcoin could be an asset class that has a lot of attraction to it as a store of value to both millennials and the new West Coast money. And as you know, they've got a lot of it. It's been around for 13 years, and with each passing day, it picks up more of its stabilization of a brand. So I own many, many more times gold than I own Bitcoin. But frankly, if the gold bet works, the Bitcoin bet will probably work better because it's thinner and more liquid and has a lot more beta to it.
It'll stand the man with more gold than a leprechaun suggests that Bitcoin's growing stability might eventually overshadow its glittery counterpart. But why stop there? It's kind of awesome. Stan Druckenmiller, and we're going to get to Ray Dalio in a minute, but all of these guys warming up to Bitcoin, kind of like the Grinch discovering the true meaning of Christmas. But here's a pretty base take from Druckenmiller. Here's Stan the man on the Federal Reserve.
But let's start with the Fed and inequality. I don't think there has been any greater engine of inequality than the Federal Reserve Bank of the United States the last 11 years. So hearing the chairman talk about visiting homeless shelters is very, very rich indeed. I just had the best year I've had in 15 years last year. Everyone wealthy I know is making a fortune. And why are we making it? Because this guy is printing money like there's no tomorrow. And the kids in Harlem, in my opinion, are not benefiting from money printing, but Stan Druckenmiller and other wealthy people are. So for the life of me, I can't figure out why the left is so excited about money printing when all the data says the people that benefit from money printing are rich people that know how to navigate the markets. The odds-on bet is we're going to have inflation. And inflation is going to hurt poor people, again, a lot more than rich people.
Howard is Stan taking shots at the Fed. If they printed more money, they'd need a bigger basement. You know, it's like it's an economic party. Yeah, anyone throwing shade at the Fed, props to those guys. Now, only if the Fed had, you know, Bitcoin's limited supply.
Bitcoin. You came on our air during the early part of the pandemic. I think it was trading at $8,000, $9,000 a coin. And you said, I'm in. And I think you wrote it all the way up to $60,000. And we then wrote it back down to $15,000, and we're now sitting, I think, somewhere around $27,000.
I've never sat on a horse that long, just so you know.
So what's you're still on the horse, though?
I, from the beginning, I've always said I want to have a small allocation to it because it's a great tail event. It's the only thing that humans can adjust the supply in. So I'm sticking with it. I'm going to always stick with it as just a small diversification in my portfolio. What do I think right now? I liked it last December. I still think I mean...
Would you buy more right now?
Would I buy more? I would probably... I look at it in gold, and I think they've done so well recently because of the fact that we have had these great risk premiums. I wonder whether they may not be boring in the future. Also, Bitcoin has a real problem because in the United States, you have the entire regulatory apparatus against it. So it's just kind of yesterday's news. And if inflation's truly done a bit, if that story's been played, then you have to wonder. We were buying gold and Bitcoin for the inflation hedges. That game may be over. I would. In 6 months ago, before AI, before the possible productivity boost that we'll get for it, I would have said a completely different story with regard to the inflationary future and with regard to all the inflation hedges.
PTJ got diamond hands, but Paul Tudor Jones jumps into the Bitcoin rodeo. He's seen the highs, he's seen the lows, and still holds on to that wild bucking Bitcoin bronco. Could Paul Tudor Jones be the cowboy of Bitcoin? No, that's Jimmy's song. Wait, who's next? Oh yeah, none other than Ray Dalio.
One of the things that you and I have talked about a lot over the years is cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin. And in the past year or two, it felt to me that you had shifted your view about them a little bit and actually got excited to think that maybe Bitcoin and others could get interesting. And I'm curious how you think about that now in terms of whether that's actually an inflation hedge or maybe it isn't.
No, I think, let me clarify again, because some people make stereotypical. I think that cryptocurrencies, in particular, I think blockchain's great, but let's call it a digital gold.
Right.
I think a digital gold, which would be a Bitcoin type of thing, is something that probably, in the interest of diversification of finding an alternative to gold, has a little spot relative to gold and then relative to other assets. But I think that we're in an environment that we're now going to ask, what is the new money? Okay, so meaning fiat currencies. And when we look at currencies, you hold currencies in the form of a debt.
Right.
And so when I say cash is trash, what I mean is that all currencies, in relationship to the euro, in relationship to the yen, all of those currencies, like in the 1930s, will be currencies that will go down in relationships to goods and services. And we are in an environment where we're going to be looking at what are those assets? What is the type of money that you could move between countries that's a medium of exchange and a storehold of wealth? And that's what I'm talking about. And I'm saying that Bitcoin has made a tremendous achievement over the last 11 years of being able to. It's a tiny percentage of my portfolio. I think the Bitcoin people get too preoccupied with it. The gold bugs get too preoccupied with it. And I think you have to look at the broader set of assets that serve that purpose.
Oh, Ray Dalio diving deep, comparing Bitcoin to that shiny rock and emphasizing diversification. Remember, don't put all your eggs or Bitcoins in one basket. Well, to that I say, speak for yourself, Ray. And no, it's not what she said. Ray said it's not the size of the investment, it's the strategy. And this is beautiful. Cash is trash. What do? You get out. And if you created a coin that says this is buying power that I know I can save in and put my money in over a period of time, and then I can transact in anywhere, I think that would be a good coin. Good on you, Ray.
Michael, one thing I've learned over the last 9 months is you're extraordinarily thoughtful in terms of how you look at your business and the things that you're implementing. And we spent the last half hour prior to you getting here talking about inflation. Kyle Bass today talked about real inflation being 12%. You've had a lot of voices on the inflation front. How do you view inflation? How does the institutional views of Bitcoin look through that lens, the lens of inflation?
I think over the past 12 months, we've all been waiting for inflation. I think we're seeing it right now. I think investors are saying that Bitcoin's up 330% and gold's up 7% in that period. So Bitcoin is outperforming gold as an inflation hedge by a factor of 50. So you're seeing Paul Tudor Jones and the other early Bitcoin believers thinking maybe it's time for me to double or triple my allocation. Between you and me, I'm surprised they're not increasing their allocation by a factor of 10 because Bitcoin's 50 times better.
Saylor absolutely destroys the Bitcoin versus gold debate. And like Greg Foss says, God dang it, it's just 10th grade math.
I want to play this clip for you and get your thoughts on the other side. Let's watch.
I think I should say modestly that I think the whole damn development is disgusting and contrary to the interests of civilization.
I mean, isn't Charlie Munger old enough to be your great-grandfather, Michelle? Like, I mean, do you go to your great-grandfather for investment advice on new technologies?
But after all that, I think it's time. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about Bitcoin doubters. Yeah, we all know one or two, or perhaps we were that person until we saw the light or the white paper. Anyway, so JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon called Bitcoin a fraud. Fast forward, and JP Morgan's now offering Bitcoin funds. Well, Jamie, is this a case of if you can't beat them, join them, or just classic, oops, I did it again, Britney style? Oh yeah, and remember when Warren Buffett called Bitcoin rat poison squared? Well, if Bitcoin's rat poison poison, then Wall Street must be the rat because they're gobbling it up like cheese. Not to mention, Fidelity has stepped into the Bitcoin game, Fidelity in Bitcoin, because nothing says innovative future like a company older than 90% of its users. As the big boys getting into Bitcoin is extremely bullish, and when prices start to go parabolic, you want to make sure that you have taken your Bitcoin off of exchanges and into self-custody. Guys, the Bitcoin Way is your IT team in the Bitcoin world. They can help you with wallet and nodes, securing your digital life. If you need any help with anything Bitcoin, you can schedule a free 30-minute call with the Bitcoin Way using the link below today. Now, BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, has expressed interest in Bitcoin. To skeptics, I say, when the biggest player in the asset game dips their toes in the Bitcoin pool, maybe, just maybe, it's not just a kiddie pool anymore. And of course, we can't forget old Ray, the man who went from Bitcoin's not very good as a storehold of wealth to I own Bitcoin. Good old Ray keeping us on our toes, but I can't wait for his next revelation. Turns out water is wet. Thanks, everyone. Just remember, the next time someone scoffs at Bitcoin, remind them of the big boys on Wall Street that are diving in, and maybe, just maybe, they'll stop saving their pennies and start counting their Satoshis. You need some more orange pills? You need some more bullishness? Well, we got you covered, baby. You can check these out right here, and we'll catch you tomorrow. Peace.